I was 16 years old, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Changed the way that I looked at
The parachute. I'm curious to hear about that.
the very first $30,000 I just lost completely. Just bad deal, just didn't work out.
How difficult was it to make your first million?
When I first got into this business, someone took me out to lunch and they told me about how they made their first million. And then they made me promise them that when I made my first million, I would have to screenshot it, send it to them, and then take them out to lunch. But very quickly from there, the business started to take off.
Every time a life changes, a storage unit gets rented.
They're opting not to get the 5-bedroom, 3-bed ranch. And then what they do is they rent self-storage as almost an additional bedroom or an additional closet. You know what is the most productive thing a business owner can do? Is sit in silence and think.
What inspired you to take that kind of risk and make money?
Number one, get educated on whatever it is that you feel passionate about. Once you get educated, seek out those that are already successful in your space.
Big dreams don't come quietly. They demand risk. They demand fire. They demand crazy transformation. Welcome to The Corporate Life. Hosted by Hina Siddiqui, CEO and founder of Corporate Influence Media and creator of the Let's Make You Famous 90-Day Celebrity Campaign and media strategist featured across 600 plus global outlets. Join us as we sit with million-dollar entrepreneurs, tech CEOs, and celebrities who share the scenes that shape them. Here, success isn't a headline. It's a human story. The turning points, reinventions, failures, breakthroughs, and bold decisions behind their rise. Because your life is a movie too, and you're the star of yours.
Fernando, I love that you jump off the airplane and built the parachute on the way down. Tell us about the jump.
Yeah, so my parents were immigrants to the United States. They kind of had the typical American dream in mind, which is go to school, get good grades, go work at a Fortune 50 company, and then retire after 40 years of the pension.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not really the reality of the world anymore. And unfortunately for them, when I was 16 years old, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Changed the way that I looked at how to make money, how taxation works, time freedom. So I still did the whole, go to school. I got an engineering degree. I did work for a Fortune 50 company for about 13 months. But when I decided to finally jump out of the airplane, I was about 6 months into the company and I just started doing real estate investing on the side. So nights and weekends. And then at month 13, when I quit, I decided that I needed startup capital, but I needed to know that there was no option for me to ever go back to that same company. I needed to burn all the bridges.
Yeah.
Not only did I quit in a just a hail storm of fire there, I also went out and in a period of a couple hours, I applied to more than 60 credit cards.
Wow.
And I got something like 12 of them approved. And when they showed up the following week, I cash advanced $97,000 off of those credit cards. And then the interest clock started ticking, right? So I needed to make sure that the business succeeded, or else here's this 22-year-old, 23-year-old that's automatically in 6 figures of debt right out of school.
Oh. Yeah, this is interesting. And I really resonate with your personality, like risk taking, because I totally agree with that. When I left my corporate job, it was exactly like that. Like I just wanted to say no to my corporate job anymore. I could not take it and just left it without any savings, anything. And whatever little money I had, I just spent on travel and learning and everything. And then it was like rest of this story. Like it's just, again, like, as you said, that building the parachute along the way. So this is it. So now just tell us about the parachute. I'm curious to hear about that. And how did you build that? And what did the journey look like in day-to-day life, like, decision by decision?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was very stressful and I had to kind of put a system together, and that system actually motivated me. So not only, I had all this debt, but I didn't just let it float there. I had a spreadsheet that tracked all the debt, which cards had what rates, when the payments were due, etc. And then I got down to the point where I knew exactly how much interest I was burning on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and then on a per minute basis.
Wow.
So that was lit a fire underneath me to make sure that every second I had that I was working towards the goal that I wanted. And so what I ended up doing was the very first $30,000 I just lost completely. Just bad deal, just didn't work out. But very quickly from there, the business started to take off. So I first started by flipping single family homes, not only the actual property itself, but flipping the paper on the property. So putting the property under contract, assigning that contract with the rights to buy that property to somebody else for a fee. And I remember the very first deal I did at the time was huge dollars. I walked away from a closing and I got a $2,500 check. I never had to buy the property. I never had to do anything. I said, okay, this is proof of concept. This works. Very quickly after that, I started doing a few more. I made 5,000. I made 7,500. I made 10,000, etc. And then at that point, I started building up a little bit of a cash reserve, started paying off the credit card debt. And then I saw that a lot of the people that were buying from me, they were in it for the longer term because what I was doing was very tax inefficient. So I was paying very large short-term capital gains on everything I was making, and that's not the right way to do it. So I started buying rental properties, single-family homes, multifamily homes. And then very quickly I got smacked in the face and realized that being a landlord is a very difficult job. Comes with a lot of liability, comes with a lot of stress, especially when you're a landlord in very cold regions where if a heater goes out or a water heater goes out, it could be a life or death situation for your tenant. So very quickly by 2016, I realized that this is not the business for me. It wasn't scalable. The paychecks were too small, and decided to wind down that side of the business, realizing that the largest liability of being a real estate investor is having someone live in your asset side of your investment. So I said, how do I do this without the bad parts? And the bad parts is the 3 T's. It's the tenants, the toilets, the trash. How do I get rid of those 3 T's, but still get all the advantageous parts of being a real estate investor? Leverage, depreciation, cash flow, tax advantages, etc. So that's when I went into self-storage. Started off doing.
How long it was ago? Like how long ago it was?
Yeah, so I quit my 9-to-5 job in 2013. I did the real estate investment up until about 2016. 2016 is when I realized I needed to start sunsetting that side of the business. So I think we sold our last habitation-based real estate investment in 2018. But at the same time in 2016, we started studying the self-storage space, doing some of these contract assignments. Because if I can get a property under contract and then sell it to someone that has more experience than me at a higher price than I got it, that means I'm doing something right. So it's proof of concept without a lot of risk. Really all I had at risk was marketing dollars and some earnest money. So $10,000, $20,000 per deal. And then in 2018, we actually started raising capital from passive investors and starting to buy assets. So from 2018 to today, we have done a little over $250 million worth of self-storage, 55 facilities across 26 states, a little over 1,000 passive investors now, and we've produced an average of about a 57% internal rate of return to our investors over that period of time. So it's been a roller coaster as we've built. And as you know, and as a lot of your listeners know, when you build, things break all the time. And they typically break in pretty consistent tranches. There's someone that I forgot, I read it in Tim Ferriss' book. There's the laws of 3s and 10s. Every time the company triples, every time it 10Xs, all of your systems break and you need to start building again. But if you can kind of have the foresight of seeing those systems break, you can start addressing those problems before they become a problem.
Exactly. When you're aware of it ahead of time, then of course you know that if you have read a lot of books and you have that awareness that, okay, if I'm on that stage, maybe something might come up and then I need to be aware of that rather than just, get blown away with the kind of challenges that keep coming at that stage. So this is really impressive and interesting. And I'm just curious, like, did you grow up seeing risk like that at home? Like, did you learn that from your parents?
No, it's actually quite the opposite. So what I learned from my parents is that business ownership is extremely risky. They had plenty of stories of friends and family members that tried to go on and start a business, and it completely destroyed their life. So I actually had the opposite side, but being somewhat of a rebel as I were, and I became a voracious reader. When I was younger, I never thought I liked to read. That's just because I wasn't reading things that interested me. I didn't like fiction. I didn't like history. I didn't like this type of stuff. But then once I started reading about how to make money,
Whoa,
how to
that's
build a
interesting.
business, then all of a sudden I loved reading. I couldn't put the books down.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that the more you can expose yourself, especially through reading books, to the lives of other people that took risks and it worked out, or took risks and it didn't work out, because you can also learn from the people that failed, because then you can learn. Most people learn through failure, but if you can learn through someone else's failure, you have none of the downside. Right? This is why reading books is so important.
Yeah.
I mean, if I look at my Audible account right now, because now everything I do is I listen to books, because I'm just on the run all the time and I'm somewhat of a traveler, so I can't haul these things around. In my library alone, I have 272 titles, and almost all of it is business, biographies,
Money books.
Money books, basically. It's self-help. How am I going to build my business and my personality and my character over time?
Yeah.
And that's what's one of the most important things as a business owner is a lot of people, what I found is they become too busy, and they become busy for busyness sake. They think that because they're busy, they're being productive. And that's not actually the case. You know what is the most productive thing a business owner can do? Is sit in silence and think.
Yeah.
It's working through problems in their head. So you need to be able to have time to just, first of all, digest the information. But then once that information's inside of you, how do you put the pieces together so that it has some actionable step in your life? And I think that is such a lost skill nowadays, because everybody nowadays, being bored is like a sin. Nope, it's sit in silence. They need to have music. They need to have a TV on.
Lots of distractions
through Instagram.
Yeah, there are lots of distractions all around us, and we have never learned to sit still. And I know that people find this kind of stuff really boring and stale.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So when I was reading your story, and I did not know that you read books, and I was just wondering, like, if you are inspired by some Hollywood movie, because your story looks like that, like, that intense risk that you took. And now I'm just wondering, what inspired you, or what just fired you to take that kind of risk and make money? Why was money making so important for you?
Yeah, it really wasn't the money making, but asking why, like a toddler 3-4 times. Why do you want to do that? But then why? But then why? And then getting to the actual thing. And the end of the day was time freedom, the ability to do what I want, when I want, with the people that I love, right? How am I going to get to that step? So now let's backtrack and figure it out. And what I figured is that, being a business owner is going to be the easiest way. Anytime I saw anyone that seemed to have, as much time freedom as they wanted, they seemed to be very successful business owners. And then I read this very interesting book by Tim Ferriss. It was called The 4-Hour Work.
Oh, this is a wonderful one.
And what a great book. And he has specifically in that book, he has a fear setting exercise. 2 lines on a piece of paper. Each line, you number it from 0 to 10.
Yeah.
The first line is, if of this choice that you're looking to make, what is the worst thing that can possibly happen to you? 0 being nothing changes in your life, 10 being you die, 9 being you're in prison for life. So just to set the parameters.
Right? Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm 23 years old. I have an engineering degree. If I jump out of the airplane without a parachute and it doesn't work out, I can always go back and use my engineering degree at another 9 to 5. Yes, I am $100,000 in debt, but I can eventually pay that off if I be pretty utilitarian about my life. And then I have friends, I have family. I'm sure I can call my parents and say, hey, can I crash on the couch for a year while I get back on my feet? So I scored it a 3. What's the worst thing that can happen with quitting my job and starting a business? 3. The second line, 0 to 10, is what is the best thing that can happen? 0, your life does not change. 10, you are living your absolute dream life. Everything, however you wanted it, is a 10. And I scored that a 9. So from a risk reward standpoint, risking a 3 to gain a 9 seems pretty reasonable, right?
Yeah.
So that's what allowed me to get the confidence to jump out of the airplane.
Yeah, I love that. And it's unfortunate when I see people around and they are very reluctant to taking risks, and they would say that stay safe, do very comfortable things. Even businesses, like, people pick up a business model that works, that somebody, like, there's lots of competition in the market. But when you pick up something which is like not too many people are doing, the idea is relatively new, and then I think there's like that risk is involved. But then without taking risk, you will stay just mediocre. You cannot achieve anything bigger, or you cannot rule your industry, isn't it?
Right. I completely agree. 100%.
Yeah. So now you buy, build, and operate self-storage units, and this is a wonderful model. But when you started it, did you have any real competitors, or this was a new idea?
Yeah, plenty of competitors. The self-storage business has been, in its infancy in 1960, I would say, roughly, maybe a little bit earlier. Got somewhat popular in the 2000s, especially after the great financial crisis, 2007 to 2009. Saw a lot of people having to downsize, store their possessions in self-storage. And then even during that time, buying these properties, you could still get a pretty decent cap rate, or a pretty decent unleveraged return on them. But then all of a sudden, Money Magazine and Fortune started talking about, Business Insider started talking about self-storage, how this seemingly very non-sexy business is a cash cow, has very low operating margins, or expense ratios, if you will, very high profitability. And then you saw this very large influx of capital come from outside. So the Blackstones of the world, the equity companies of the world coming in to participate. I mean, Bill Gates is an investor in one of my competitors. So the key is, yes, it was a competitive market, but the way that self-storage works, it's a very hyper-localized business. So when you buy a self-storage facility, you're really only competing with other self-storage facilities in a 1 to 5 mile radius around your facility, or even more granular, a 5 to 15-minute drive time around your facility. So there's not really a lot of competition, as long as you know where to buy, what locations to buy and build in, so that you can get a leg up on the competition. So it's not like I'm trying to compete against a company that's in a different state, et cetera. So that, I'd say when I got in 2018 was right at the end of the zero interest rate policies in the United States. So debt was very cheap. That allowed for us to buy deals with high leverage, which then allowed us to have very high cash on cash returns. But then as that liquidity dried up in the market, and then at the same time, owners of these facilities started to see that they can command a higher price, you kind of had this crossing of higher debt prices, but at the same time, higher purchase prices. And that made the market a little bit more competitive, which then required us to get creative, right?
Yeah. And you got really creative, and you just turned that kind of unsexy business into a long-term wealth making machine. So what is the model behind the magic?
There's basically 4 main avenues of how we make money. The first is the consolidation strategy. So we buy existing mom and pop operators. These are people that typically are not being very efficient with how they run their business. They may not be utilizing technology. They may not be utilizing competitor analysis. They don't have economies of scale, so their expenses are very high. And then in a lot of cases, sometimes they're the ones operating the facilities themselves. So they're behind the desk. They become friends with the customers. you pay late, they don't charge a late fee, they never raise the rent on you. So there's opportunity right there just in the operation side. You also have the ability to expand these facilities. So a lot of these facilities that we buy from mom and pop operators come with additional land that we can expand the facility once the existing facility is stabilized. Then what we do is we consolidate them into portfolios of 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 20 properties at a piece, and then sell them up the feeding chain. And why this works is when they're just that one facility that is not stabilized, that's not being run very well, the guys with the big money, the very cheap cost of capital, like the publicly traded REITs, they're not interested in doing all of that work for very nominal payout in dollar terms, right? But if there's someone in the middle that's willing to buy that $1 to $2 million asset, turn it into a $3 to $5 million asset, and then group it with 10 others, now you have a $30 million portfolio to sell. Now the REITs, the publicly traded companies, become very excited for something.
That's really smart. Yeah.
So then not only are you able to increase your profitability by increasing the profit margin, but then the valuation also changes. So I'm buying things at an 8 to 12% cap rate, unleveraged return. I'm selling them at a 5.5 to a 7% cap rate, unleveraged return. So not only am I getting profitability from the increased operations and increased net operating income, but then on the multiple that I get paid on that increased NOI as well for my investors. So that's the first strategy, is the consolidation strategy. Now, the problem with the consolidation strategy is that a lot of these facilities are somewhat small individually, 35 to 65,000 square feet each. What we can also do is try to get a lot of that square footage under one roof. So what we do is we'll go buy land and we'll build these Class A 3 to 4 story self-storage facilities that are 80 to 110,000 net rentable square feet, all under one roof. That ground up strategy, while it has not a lot of cash flow, it does have a very large equity multiple because, for example, there was a site I did in Atlanta, bought the land for $500,000, zoned it, did the entitlements. That was probably another $500,000. And then we spent about $9 million to build it. We'll easily be able to sell that thing for 18 to 22 million. So very large multiple on equity. And then not to mention that a lot of that is finance, the power of leverage. So that $14 million deal all in, the bank has given us 10. We're putting up 4 million of our own cash or our investors' cash. That 4 million turns into $8-9 million of profit. So a 2 to 3x multiple on money invested over a very somewhat short period of time, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's strategy number 2. And then strategy number 3, which is a little bit less, but was pretty popular during and right after the pandemic, is adaptive reuse conversions, where we would buy dormant big box retail stores. So Kmart's, Sears buildings, Circuit Cities, Walmart's, and then convert those into self-storage. The great thing about that is that we're already walled in. We have the envelope. So construction timeline drops by 30 to 40%. Construction cost drops by around 25 to 40%, depending on how much you can negotiate to get that shell for. So those are the 3 main strategies. And then we have a 4th strategy, which feeds all 3 of those strategies, which is our marketing company.
Yeah.
We market for all types of self-storage, even the stuff that we don't want to buy, knowing that someone else may want to buy it. So we get to cherry pick the best of the best for us. And then anything that's still a second base or a third base hit, we can assign that contract to one of the 3,000, 3,500 buyers on our list and monetize that lead for something that we weren't going to buy in the first place, right? And those assignment fees can pay for 1 to 2 years of marketing. It could be as low as $50,000 to we've pulled $1 million assignment fees off of portfolios of properties. So those are our 4 main strategies that we make money.
That's interesting. And also, I have a question right now, like just coming up in my mind, that how difficult was it to make your first million? Because the first millions are a bit difficult. And then, you just get hang of it and everything becomes easy after that. What was your experience?
Yeah, this is great. This is something I tell people all the time. It's most people, when they try to do business, they try to start small and then incrementally step up to the next level.
Yeah.
And that may work because it feels safe, but it actually
takes a lot.
Causes you to lose a lot of time.
Yeah.
Let's say the average lifespan is 80 years. You probably start your business already in the second quartile. So you're in your 20s, maybe 30s when you start your first business. So you only got really, and I'm assuming you don't want to work after retirement age, 70 to 80 years old. So you really only got about 30 years to knock this thing out of the park, right? So why start with $100,000 deal when you could do a $10 million deal?
Absolutely.
Add a couple zeros. And the nice thing about adding a couple zeros is it opens up profitability that you can pay other experts to do things so that you're not doing everything yourself. You can pay a construction manager, a property manager, an asset manager, a capital raiser, a marketing company. Whereas when you're doing the small deals, it's you, because unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, salaries do not scale as a percentage.
Yeah.
So when you're doing small deals, someone, the percentage that would be appropriate would mean that they're only getting paid $500 a month, and that's not a living wage. So no one's going to do it. So that means you have to do it. Yeah. But the nice part about that too is that, let's say you scale to a $10 million deal, and that person's willing to work for $2,500 or $5,000 a month. That is a much smaller percentage than what it was when you were doing a smaller deal, right? So the growth is an interesting thing. I always tell people, if you can, shoot for the moon. Start as big as you can, knowing that, however, the more money you have and the more track record you have, the easier it is to do more profitable deals later on. Your access to cheaper debt, your access to cheaper equity becomes more abundant. More people know about you. You have a track record to point on, so it's no longer someone taking a chance on you. It's more like, hey, look at the strategy. I've done 37 open and close round trip deals. Just let the results speak for themselves, It
takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of risk taking. It takes a lot of mindset that, it's just that when I coach people, when I work with IT CEOs and founders, I say that, it takes the same amount of time and energy and everything to make your, $5 million or $10 million. Like, just set a number and just go really big. Because, it's just the capacity of you thinking something really, big and have the capacity to hold the big numbers, and rather than just playing very safe. And the problem with that is, like, on that level, there's a lot of crowd. There are a lot of people out there. There's a lot of competition. But then when you grow higher, elevate yourself, elevate your business and numbers, then you will actually work with a better group of people, like, who are not very stingy, who are not, who will not bother you much in your, would not be difficult clients or something like that. So this is interesting. Like, I'm really, I really like you are talking about all that, and people are just listening. This is a very good idea, that think really big and start big. Why start small when we can start big?
Right. Exactly. So, to answer your question more concisely, the first $1 million, it took 3-4 years to make. And it was crazy because I remember when I first got into this business, someone took me out to lunch and they told me about how they made their first $1 million. And then they made me promise them that when I made my first $1 million, I would have to screenshot it, send it to them, and then take them out to lunch.
Interesting.
Like dinner, and they'd be able to buy and drink whatever they wanted. So I remember that day. I remember when in my checking account, there's $1 million and I screenshot it and I sent it to this guy named David. And I said, David, it's my turn to take you out to dinner. So
did that lunch?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and then it's a buddy of mine in Chicago. And then, very quickly, once you get that under your belt, all of a sudden you realize this imaginary barrier. Like, why was I so afraid of this number?
Ceiling, imaginary. Yeah.
Why would I put this thing such a pedestal? And then very quickly, the second came, then the third came, then the fourth came, very fast.
Yeah.
And it's all because I think there was a mindset shift.
Yes.
From once I had it in my account to be like, hey, this is actually doable.
Yeah.
This is not some pie in the sky thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree with you on this. So now you have a lot of money. What do you think money can't buy? Is there anything money can't buy?
There's a lot of things money can't buy. So I always tell people there's kind of both sides of this. So money can't buy happiness, but the lack of money can cause unhappiness, right?
Yeah.
So there's always a level you need to get above. I saw a study a couple years ago. I'm sure the number has gone up now because of inflation, but at the time it was a single individual making $75,000 a year. After that 75,000, anything above that, the incremental gain in happiness was somewhat minimal for a single person without kids, right? So obviously, whatever the numbers are for dual income household with kids, or single income household with kids becomes harder. But then what I realized is there's a lot of things that money, just for the sake of money, don't really solve your problems. So I'm a big believer in masterminds, getting together with other business owners that are going through the same problems that you may not be able to talk to your high school friends about because they just don't understand these problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money you have, you always have money problems. Just the money problems change.
Yeah.
First, it's the lack of money. Then having too much money could be a problem. How do you steward it? How do you protect it, et cetera? And at these masterminds, what I found is I met some people that were extremely wealthy, like very, very, very wealthy, but they were miserable human beings. They were working 80 hours a week. Their family didn't talk to them. They were maybe on their third divorce. And what I realized was money, it amplifies the way you are. So,
yeah.
For example, a perfect example of this is the studies that people have done on lottery winners. These are lottery winners. They did not have good financial stewardship in the first place because they play the lottery, which is inherently attacks people that don't understand probabilities, right? Almost every lottery winner in the study, within 7 years, they were worse off than they were before they
when it started. Yes,
because they did not have the mentality of how to be a good steward of money, right?
Yeah.
So back to the thing of happiness. What I think really brings happiness is the ability to spend time with the people that you love or the people that you may love, right? And I say may love because I'll expand on that in here in a second. What's the point of making $100 million a year if all you do with your waking hours is work? You never get to enjoy that time. You never get to spend with family. So that sucks.
Yeah.
And there's been multiple studies and multiple books that I've read that on people's deathbeds, they never said, I wish I would have worked more. They always say, I wish I would have spent more time with my family, with my friends,
lived
with
better.
my dogs.
Yeah.
Lived better, right? So that's number one. Time freedom. Time freedom usually allows you to spend time with the people that you love. The second thing is acts of service. So not only just donating money to charity, but the actual act. So going and volunteering at a charity, going on Thanksgiving and serving food to people that may not have the ability to eat the same thing that you're eating. That, when you see that you are leaving a positive mark, I think truly these selfless acts, it's almost like selflessness, because by doing these things, they truly do make you feel better by helping other people.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of like selfish altruism. I don't know what the term would be for it, but I think that's huge. And some of the times that I've been the happiest in my life is when I saw that I was able to make a huge difference on someone else's life.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, me and a couple of my other self-storage buddies, one of them puts on this trip 2 to 3 times a year where we go into some pretty, impoverished areas of Mexico. We physically build houses for people, not give money to builders. Like, I get a hammer, start carrying lumber, and I am physically building it. I get to see the family, see the progress of the house going up. We get to interview them when the house is done, and then handing over the keys. It's like one of the most amazing things that I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
So what I found is that the ability to have the time to engage in charity and in these acts of service requires time freedom. Again, if you're working 7 days a week,
exactly,
18 hours a day, you don't have the ability to do this. So I think it all comes down to the ability to have time freedom, because that leads to everything else.
Yeah. So time freedom, like you can do anything with your time. Some people would like to travel more. Some people would like to engage in the acts of service. And then some people would like to spend more time with their partners or families or, friends in general, or maybe to socialize. So yes, very important. Like people are in the corporate world, people are working so much, like it's a hustle culture. We say that everybody is just working so hard and just trying to survive. So that is again the mindset game. Like you are just on that level where you are playing very small, and then just to keep your job or business, alive, you have to do a lot of hard work, which is eventually is putting you in that kind of situation where you get heart attacks, once you scale up a bit, because this is all self-sabotage.
Right.
Yeah. Fernando, every time a life changes, a storage unit gets rented. What do you think a self-storage unit says about the person who rents it?
That's first of all, I'm going to have to steal that. That's a great saying. Every time a life changes, a storage unit gets rented. Yeah, it's very interesting. Self-storage use has evolved over time. In the beginning, we were somewhat of a trauma and transition business. So downsizing, death, divorce, lost your job, etc. That kind of what we were. But as we have seen over time, that has changed quite a bit. And I think two of the main things come from the two of the largest generations that we have. So number one, you have the baby boomers. I've seen a couple different studies, so the number might be a little bit off, but somewhere between 10,000 to 16,000 people a day are retiring on the lower end, and on the higher end, 10 to 16,000 people are downsizing into some type of either active living community, assisted living community, or even memory care, depending on what part of that generation you're at. So now you have a giant group of people that were raised by parents that went through the Great Depression, where every little thing you couldn't throw out because you never knew when you're going to need to use this piece of paper again, in 50 years. So you just hoard it. And a lot of those kids got the same mentality from that. And so now, those baby boomers that they were able to buy housing at an affordable rate, when wages were higher as a ratio to housing prices, you had people coming back from the war. You had people that were able to buy a 5-bedroom, 3-bath ranch for $16,000 or $30,000. Now they're downsizing from a 5-bedroom ranch into a 1-bedroom condo or into a assisted living facility, and they don't want to give away or sell any of that stuff. So where does it go? Into permanent storage until either they die and their kids are either too distraught to deal with it, so they just let it ride, or the kids say, enough of this, just sell it all or donate it all. So that's one side. The other side is the millennials, right, and younger. This generation is hit with a massive affordability crisis. I think an average starter home I saw the other day is like $415,000, and the average income is something like $60,000. So just there's a huge divide in income to affordability. So what are these millennials and younger doing? They're opting not to get the 5-bedroom, 3-bed ranch. They're going to get a 2-bed condo in a 15-minute walkable city or something near that, where everything they need is nearby. So maybe they don't need a car, grocery stores walking distance, entertainment, nightlife, all walking distance. And then what they do is they rent self-storage as almost an additional bedroom or an additional closet. So now it becomes a permanent use where instead of me, if I'm buying a house, instead of me coughing up an extra $50,000 for an extra bedroom, or if I'm renting an extra $200 to $500 a month rent for an extra bedroom, I can go rent at Fernando self-storage facility for $80 to $100 a month for a 10 by 10 for a 100 square feet, right? That's a lot of space at a very minimal monthly cost compared to the alternative of getting a larger living space. And I think that is you're starting to see this large trend, and I don't see it stopping until affordability is addressed in this country. And the only real way to address affordability, which will never happen, is to basically get rid of zoning. This NIMBY attitude of you can't build a dense residential in my neighborhood where everyone's on an acre lot.
Yeah.
The only place we saw this happen where it actually worked was in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. They completely got rid of restrictive zoning, and it's one of the only areas in the country where rent has either stayed flat or gone down. And same thing with housing prices, has either stayed flat or gone down, because they allowed the ability to build dense residential basically anywhere. But I don't see that happening anytime soon in the United States, because a lot of people's wealth, especially the baby boomers, a lot of their wealth is trapped in home equity.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's like a city of little stories, right? Oh, like one is holding someone's heartbreak, another is someone's startup inventory, or another is just a backup for the life they will return to one day. So this is very interesting, like a very secret, like this. All these units must have some secrets about somebody's life, right? Who are not ready to let go of them yet.
Right. Yeah, totally true. I love the analogy. It's great. A couple of great snob bites I'm gonna have to steal here from you.
So in Dubai, we have brands like this, but then it's still premium and emerging. So do you ever see yourself expanding globally into places like Dubai or maybe in India?
Yeah. So, I travel quite a bit because of that time freedom, and because we've been able to build a company that is so efficient, has pretty strict and set process and procedures that we can do it from basically anywhere. So, I mean, in the last 12 months, I've been to probably 8 or 9 different countries where I saw the ability for self-storage to be an option. I'm already starting to see it down in Brazil, in Mexico, Canada. Obviously, they're almost like a replica of the consumer base in the United States. But even in places where consumerism isn't very strong, parts of Europe, parts of Southeast Asia, I think there's opportunity. But at the same time, I still think there's plenty of opportunity in the United States. And when you look at it, the United States has very defined property laws and business laws. So investing in the United States, I still think has a lot of appetite. There's a lot of appetite for it.
A lot of potential, yeah.
Especially because of the usage. So here's a statistic that I have that I recently did some studying on. In Brazil, for example, 1 in every 110 people use self-storage. Okay. In the United States, it's 1 in every 9 people.
Oh, okay.
So 10 times the demand for the same amount of people. And the craziest part is the Americans are some of the people that have the most amount of space in their habitation, in their house or in their apartment, as far as not only the amount of space in the physical living space, but then there's a ton of people that have a house on 1 acre of land or 2 or 5 acres of land. That's all potential storage space. But guess what? These are the people that are most likely to use self-storage.
Oh, that's
they don't want it in their house.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Now, Fernando, I would like to play a game with you, and we play this game with every guest, and this is called one of my favorite games. This is called This or That. So I would give you 2 options. I just need to pick one, and the idea is to understand you as a person based on the answers that you give. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Get ready for the ultimate challenge, This or That. Choose fast, trust your instincts, and let's go.
Risk or strategy?
You said risk or strategy? Strategy.
LP or GP?
LP.
Real estate or Wall Street?
Real estate, 100%.
Chicago or Miami?
Chicago.
Slow growth or blitz scale?
Slow growth.
Trust or control?
Trust.
Credit cards or cash in the bank?
I would say now cash in the bank, but when I didn't have an option, credit cards.
Build from scratch or buy undervalued?
Buy undervalued.
Public speaking or closed room negotiations?
Closed room negotiations.
Fear of failure or fear of playing small?
Fear of playing small.
I get it. Interesting. So this is great, and you played well, and it actually helps us understand you much better based on like what all you answered. So this
I
is
love that.
yeah. Fernando, we believe in season 3, like on this show, that every life is a movie and you are the star of yours. And I can clearly see that your life is a movie. So what is the title of that movie?
The title of my movie is Why Not? What's the Worst That Can Happen?
And why is that?
I mean, again, I think everybody, the unfortunate part of how humans evolved is that we have this huge prefrontal cortex that is the only purpose is to simulate what is the worst thing that can happen to keep us alive. So we don't do those.
Survival, yes.
However, we no longer live in a world where every rustling of a bush is a tiger or a lion that's about to eat us.
Yeah.
But we still take that same amount of stress in overanalyzing, thinking that every little decision is going to end the world, and it's really not. That's why I think my book is called, or the story of my life is Why Not? What's the Worst That Can Happen? Because when you actually sit down and instead of just feeling and emotions, you actually write down what is truly the worst that can happen, and if I do this thing, what is the best that can happen? You're always going to see, almost 100% of the time, you're going to see that you should take that risk, because the worst case that can happen is not as bad as you thought.
Yeah.
And the best that can happen is actually be much better than what you actually thought.
Yeah.
We end up downplaying all the pros and upplaying and over exaggerating all the cons. So I'd say, why not? What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, I love that. So cost of staying the same is much more than cost of taking a risk.
What would be the name of yours?
My movie is basically adventure. It's an adventure ride. Like I say that my business is an adventure. My life is an adventure. I do things just on impulse. I'm not a very I'm a very spiritual person. So I would just go all in whatever I want to do. And I don't want to do anything that everybody's doing. So I would do things that, things in a different way. And I think that standing out in the crowd is what we have come here on this earth for. We are not here to be the Xerox copy of the other people. So we have to have our own personalities and do things in our own way, of course.
I love it.
Thank you for asking.
Road less traveled.
Yeah. Road less traveled, yeah. Fernando, if you had one message for the next Fernando out there, someone someone staring at 5 digits of credit card debt and a big idea, what would you say?
I'd say, number one, get educated on whatever it is that you feel passionate about. Once you get educated, seek out those that are already successful in your space to see if you can learn from them, so you can leapfrog over years of potential failures that you can learn very quickly. Masterminds are great for this. And then shoot for the moon. I mean, do something big.
Yeah.
Because looking back at the end of the day, doing 1x versus 10x, it's usually about the same amount of effort, the same amount of stress. So
yeah,
why not get a larger return out of it?
Absolutely. Why not play a bigger game?
Right.
Yeah. Fernando, if for those who want to follow the rest of your movie, how can we follow you? How can we connect with you?
Yeah. So I always tell people there's 2 ways to reach out. If you're more of a passive outreach person, go to our website, ssse.com. So samedward.com. You can learn about us there. You can schedule a call or send us an email. If you're more of an aggressive outreach person, this is my real cell phone. My real cell phone number is area code 630-408-8090. And that's a U.S. number. So +1 630-408-8090.
Thank you, Fernando. It was a fun conversation. I really loved it.
I enjoyed myself as well. Thanks for having me.
This is The Corporate Life. More stories, more insight, more truth. Until the next episode, stay curious. Don't forget to subscribe.